This is the Clutch Picks Betting Podcast, back again for part 2. Presented by Clutch Points, powered by DraftKings. Like, follow, and subscribe, rate us, review us, all that other fun stuff. You know where to get the podcast. Apple, Spotify, and of course YouTube. Just search Clutch Picks Betting Podcast. My name is Sheldon Alexander, and I'm joined by sports betting professional and creator of The Window, available on Substack and wherever you get your podcasts. You know the name by now, Mr. Matt Russell. How are you doing, my friend?
Very good. Callers, haircuts, my general tone of skin, just to get everybody up to date who hasn't watched or listened to the AFC version. You don't have to do these things in order, but if you don't, that's just getting you up to speed here. Yeah, the boys are fired up, et cetera, et cetera. Let's talk some NFC football.
Fired up and ready to go. If you wanted the full intro, as mentioned, go and listen to part 1. But in case you didn't listen to part 1, a quick recap. We talked about any and everything involving the AFC, meaning that by default, part 2 would be about the NFC. Funny how that works, isn't it?
Who's going to be in the shower? Who's going to be in the shower in the NFC? Right?
Right.
If you haven't listened to the AFC, you're like, I missed a doozy, didn't I?
What is going on there, right? But I'm going to go through the whole spiel again, just in case there's one or two or three people that might be new to the pod.
Stragglers.
Each and every week, right? Pod will be available on Thursday, where I try to give you a pick to each and every NFL game on the schedule. And then Matt comes in with the information and education on where the line was, where it is, and where it could be going heading into kickoff. I try to come out on the other end with a much more informed pick. I play the role of the viewer. Sometimes Matt convinces me to change my pick, and other time I foolishly don't listen. But, that's a joke. That's a bit. That's what the show is. The goal, I try to win more than I lose. I'm proud to say that for the most part, last year was a little dicey there.
Do you think people want the 6-year record? Right, it's like the record people, right? As if sports betting isn't just absolutely full of context and variables and things of that nature. And people are like, yes, but what was the record for the last 6 months? It's like,
that's the beauty of it, right? Like the record. Maybe I should add this a part of the intro, but like the record is really like the bit of the show. The purpose of the show is just to have the conversation about all these games and what's going on and what we're thinking. And again, just trying to come out on the other one with a much more informed bet. Does that mean you're going to win all the bets? No, but you'd at least like to have a better idea as to why we're going to be on one side versus the other side, or at least leaning more on one side versus the other side. But all that fun stuff in terms of the actual games, that comes next week. And again, that's each and every Thursday. What we're doing right now is we are doing our NFL previews. We break down each and every division, but just going to let you know, the easy thing would be, hey, you know what? Going to pick the Chiefs to win the AFC West. But that's not what we do here. What we do here is try to break down a gambling perspective and try to find a value bet in each and every decision, or division in English is what I meant to say.
Well,
it's not
division
like
decisions.
This is the first week division. Ooh, maybe that should be the name of the pod.
Division decisions.
I like
subtitle
that. For next year.
Boom.
For next year, we'll make a graphic. Year 7. Oof. Wow. But again, big shouts to DraftKings, the sponsor of the pod, and also providing the odds for us here as we move on to the NFC. And I scrolled down in my script to get to the NFC stuff here.
Preseason for everybody. Still preseason for everybody.
Still preseason for everybody. NFC West. My San Francisco 49ers at plus 155. The Los Angeles Rams at plus 200. The Arizona Cardinals at plus 425, and the Seattle Seahawks at plus 500. This is a super, super, super interesting division in my estimations here. And I'm going to start here. I'm going to start here. Okay. I'm going to start here, Matt. Stafford's back is already an issue, and the season hasn't even started yet. I'm going to ask you something, though, Matt. Hold on. I'm going to bring you back on screen here. I'm going to ask you something. Is using some form of wellness device called an immortal chamber? Sick. What is going on here? Right.
Sick.
Anyways. So I'm looking at this and I'm not buying my own Niners. You know, we'll get there. We'll talk about them for sure, because that's my squad.
Yeah.
The Cardinals, Seahawks. This is an interesting division, but the one thing I do know is that I cannot put my full faith into the Rams because of Matthew Stafford's injury heading into the season. It hasn't even started yet. And I know you probably just want to give him training camp off. You don't really want him to be doing too much, but you still need to be able to do something. Right? You still got to be able to do, like, you're still going to have, you can't just like drop into the start of an NFL season with 300-pound dudes sprinting after you. Like, it's not a good look for the Rams. So, I mean, as much as I'm sure that I don't want anything to do with the Rams, I'm going to be honest with you. The rest of this division is kind of a toss up to me, because I'm kind of confused here.
Right.
But does that mean value?
Well, let's just talk about the Matthew Stafford thing, right? And first of all, what was it, like, immortal chamber? Is that what you said?
Yeah, immortal chamber.
So I got a little bit into cold plunging this summer.
Okay.
You know, your boy's getting a little old. The lower half joints, your knees, your ankles, things of that nature. Muscles.
Year 6 of the pod, man.
All
year
of
6
those.
of the pod. I get it.
Yeah, year 6 of the pod, man. Like, just tough scenes. And you know, it's pretty hot this summer. So combination, right? We got as low as 56 degrees for the plunge. We're not talking, you know, not necessarily icy polar bear type stuff, but type of thing where I was thinking, like, man, like, if I could get some sort of immortal chamber scenario going here, like, that might be my next step. The fact that
hold on. Can I interest you in an AI overview of the Matthew Stafford immortal chamber and what it refers to? An immortal chamber that the Los Angeles Rams quarterback has been seen using in August 2025 following an August 2025 back injury. The chamber is $160,000 Airstream trailer from the company Immortal, which is marketed as a wellness device using various non-invasive technologies, including red light therapy, bioenergetic technologies, electromagnetic energy, and
all the stuff.
Acoustic energy. The device is designed to optimize human performance and promote holistic health, and is compared by some to a cryogenic chamber seen in the movie Austin Powers. That's from AI. Anyway.
Late 90s technology from Austin Powers. So I guess there was some time travel there. Did they time travel up to 2025? Did we know all of this coming? These are quite literally questions for another podcast, probably the one where we debate the Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson MVP from last season. Another callback joke to the AFC pod. That's going to make more sense later on. Okay. I mean, during my cold plunges, did I ever think, hey, let's get a guy with an acoustic guitar up here to maybe soothe some things? No, I didn't, but I don't know if that's exactly what Matthew Stafford's working with. My point was going to be the fact that we know all of this stuff. When it's Matthew Stafford, and if he didn't want to play any in the preseason, it's the Rams, he probably just wasn't going to play in the preseason. Nobody would have blinked, right? And so the fact that we know all of this and are therefore sort of already getting pre-warned about it is not great. I will say, in a weird way, the Rams are I think gonna be a team that I just bet on every week this season. And here's what I mean. When Matthew Stafford plays, I'm going to like the Rams to like win the football game. And, you know, maybe even do so by margin, because I think the defense is improved, and they can take a lead and hold a lead potentially, right? Like, Kyron Williams isn't the most explosive guy on the planet, in that, like, he's not at all, but like, that guy will ground some ass, right? Like, that guy's just going to ground you down. Okay. I didn't get an outward laugh there. I got the eye raise from Shell. So, you know, like, they're going to move the ball, and they're going to move the ball relatively slowly, but I think the defense can sort of pick up the pace. Your boy Jimmy Garoppolo is the backup quarterback. So on the days when Stafford is out, what we're going to have is a here comes Jimmy situation. You and I are going to talk on the Wednesday morning podcast about how Jimmy Garoppolo's general involvement has dropped the Rams rating from an above average team to a below average team. But then meanwhile, Sean McVay is out here cooking, and they're going to be an underdog, like at home to San Francisco or something. And we're going to be like, guess what? We're on the Rams again this week. Right. So it's going to be either like Stafford as a favorite or like with expectations, or it's going to be Garoppolo just to keep it close. Like, and that just is sort of the way that I'm going to play the Rams. Now, the problem is, are we going to get 5 Stafford games and 12 Garoppolo games? Or are we going to get 12 Garoppolo games and 5 Stafford games? And if we get the 12 from Stafford, then plus 200 for the division, like, could be a thing. If it's the other way around and we're just looking to cover plus 6.5, I don't want them to win the division, right? So, like, you cannot bet on the Rams here because we don't know the Stafford-Garoppolo ratio, which is what I'm tentatively calling it until I come up with something more fun. The Staff Polo, ratio. Basically, essentially, your wardrobe right now with the Staff Polo on. So, we'll see what the offensive line is capable of as far as keeping Stafford upright. Probably a lot of handoffs to Kyren Williams just in general in our lives. So, yeah. The 49ers thing is interesting because the schedule, as you likely know, is so incredibly comfortable. So comfortable that it's going to be really hard for them not to win 10 or 11 games. And that might come down to like what days they play the Rams and what time, when they get Stafford. A lot of these teams are going to come down, right? The Cardinals are going to, that season might come down to when they play the Rams with or without Stafford. The Seahawks as well. Mm-hmm. The Cardinals are the sort of interesting one where if they just like won 11 games or 12 games, like I wouldn't really be all that surprised because I look at, we've talked in the AFC about, coach quarterback combination, right? And sometimes that's the coach and quarterback working together because the coach is an offensive guy. Sometimes it's, all right, head coach, you handle the defense and the quarterback has to handle the offense with his play caller and et cetera, et cetera. And there's a divide. And if you have a good defensive head coach, then he can get that thing figured out on that side of the ball. And if you have a good quarterback, you can kind of have that thing figured out on that side of the ball. And there are certainly enough weapons for the Cardinals that if Kyler Murray cannot be Baker Mayfield 2.0, where just when you think he's out, he pulls you back in, and just when you're way in on Kyler Murray, you're very much out. Like the fact that they have an 8.5 win total in a league that plays 17 games, like this is the most average team. Where are they average because they're average, or are they average because nobody knows what to expect? It could be 4 games worse. It could be 4 games better. So the fact that the Cardinals are plus 425 is a lot different than, say, when we were talking about the Jags at plus 240 or whatever that was, right? Once you reach a certain level of the odds that you're offering me, then I'm going to become a lot more curious. As for the Seahawks, I look at it like, listen, it's not fair that I gave Mike McDonald like 1 year of opportunity to like come in and improve on Pete Carroll. And because he didn't, I'm now just kind of out. But like, I'm also out on the whole Sam Darnold situation and like the offensive line's capability of protecting Sam Darnold and the running game that didn't exist last year. And yes, they changed the offensive coordinator. Ryan Grubb is now down at Alabama with Kalen DeBoer, his old Washington Husky buddy. I'm taking more of a I need to see it approach from the Seahawks. Whereas the Cardinals, like I've seen like enough to know that like it's in there somewhere with Jonathan Gannon and like defensively what he could potentially do and Murray and what the offense can potentially do. It's just a matter if like they do it more than 8.5 games this year, right? Because it could be 12 or 13. And that would be, I think, somewhat surprising to a lot of people. But then you've got the 49ers sitting there with like what feels like them going to be favored by over a field goal in like every game that they play this season, which isn't even going to tell us whether or not the 49ers are actually good this year. They could win 12 games and we could be like, yeah, I'm not sure they're really all that good. They just kind of win every week because their opponents aren't very good.
Which leads me to my value pick being the San Francisco 49ers at plus 155 here.
Sneaky.
Well, here's the thing. It goes back to where you started here talking about the Niners, and you said their schedule is just super easy this year. And I think, as much as I'm not believing in their like actual contendership for anything here this season, right? Like I'm not anticipating them to win for championship. I feel like this is the year where you'll start hearing about Kyle Shanahan. He's a master. He's so good. He's done this. He's done that. All these things again, where it's just like, okay, cool. But did they just rebuild their defense? You know what I mean? Like, did their defense?
That's a big question mark. Yeah.
Right? Like all of those things.
Because it's Bosa and Warner and then like a bunch of randoms, essentially. Like it feels like to me, right? Yeah. Where it used to be Bosa, Warner, and then like, oh, wait, there's actually 6 other guys. And now those guys have been like redispersed throughout the league. And like you're still hanging on to Warner and Bosa, who have like maybe 2 good years left. And it's just like it comes down to whether those other guys can play. And I don't know the answer to that. But we might never know the answer to that because of the schedule.
And also, you man's McCaffrey back, right? Like, how is he going to look? Is he going back to the Christian McCaffrey we last saw when he was healthy? Probably not, but how good does he have to be in this new offense? And something you talk about a lot as well is how much money you have to pay your quarterback versus the rest of your team. And the Niners are right in the midst of that now where they're paying their quarterback, so you can't pay the rest of the team. So there's so many odds here, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things
that but John Lynch has made it future John Lynch's problem, right? He has, if you go and you look at like it's actually pretty funny. If you go to any like salary cap like website and break down like what guys are actually getting paid, like Purdy's making like on average, like what, sort of a mid-tier starting quarterback or whatever, which I think is fair. Compared to like less than $1 million last year, but it's only counting this year for like to the tune of like $9 million. And it just means that like 3 years from now, it's counting at like $70 million. And it's like, future John Lynch is going to worry about that. Or like John Lynch's like predecessor after John Lynch goes like, hey, we tried, and then just bails like in a year or two when Bosa and Warner and so on and Kittle and Trent Williams are all like done. And John Lynch is like, all right, sorry about like the salary cap like disaster that I'm leaving behind. Because like any other corporation or whatever, like the human beings that run it are just trying to make as much money and have as much success right this second. And they don't care about the long-term success of the industry, the company, et cetera, et cetera. And so John Lynch has basically said, F it, like we're going all in here. Like we have to sign Purdy, but we're also kicking the salary cap thing down the street. And I'll be shocked if either of these guys is around 2 to 3 years from now when they actually have to figure this thing out.
I'll be really sad to see those guys go because I really like both of them. I think they've both been awesome, and what they've done in terms of building the team and having this long of a run of relevance has been incredible. So maybe that's also why I'm hanging on here with my value pick, because I don't know how much longer
you are the John Lynch of the podcast. Yeah, you are like, listen, man, like we're doing one more year. Let's keep it above water here. Let's, yeah, exactly.
Let's move on to the NFC North, where we have the Detroit Lions at plus 160, the Green Bay Packers at plus 225, the Minnesota Vikings at plus 320, and the Chicago Bears at plus 550. Now, this division was a beast last year, right? Like just problems all around in this division. But I'm going to say this. I don't really trust JJ McCarthy. I need to see it first, play half a season maybe before I have like real opinions. My question is there value on the Bears? They got a new coach, a better offensive line, I'm told, right? Offensive weapons. Now it's the interesting part to me about the Bears is that it's now on Caleb, right? Like, listen, bro, like we got to see something from you this year. Are you legit? But overall, just too risky. I think I like Green Bay here, and maybe I'm a sucker, right? Maybe I'm a sucker because Green Bay last year, they had a good run, liked Green Bay last year. And then I don't even know how to fully, like, maybe the division was just too good. Like, there's just too much, like, you know what I mean? Like, there's a moment where it was
a lot going on.
Right. And with
there
the
was
Lions,
a weird amount of going on. Yeah.
The Lions are not quite the Niners where like your run is over, but I feel like their run's not over. I'm not saying that, but the run that you have as legitimate Super Bowl contenders, that door might be closing a little bit here. Not relevancy, but I'm saying you're like legit Super Bowl
favoritism,
especially losing both your coordinators. There's a lot going on in this division there was last season. So I'm kind of going to open the floor to you here, which direction you want to go in to talk about which team first here.
Yeah. Let's start with the Lions, right? Because, and the NFL in general, where we look at all of these teams and we watch these games every week, and then we get to lock in on Thursday Night Football, Sunday Night Football, and Monday Night Football. And we get to just dissect the coaching. And sometimes that's the head coach, and sometimes that's the coordinators. And then we realize, especially watching like an Andy Reid, Patrick Mahomes combo, and your boy Spags, and you just go, man, once you get the offensive and defensive coordinator and like the quarterback deal going, like the longer you can just ride that out, like do it. And the unfortunate sort of rhythm of the NFL is you get a lot of these teams who don't win the Super Bowl, but have success to the point where everybody wants their coordinators. And it's really hard to just do it again. I compare it to group of 5 college football. Like if you are the Troy Trojans and you hit on a coach, you're like, all right, it's just a matter of time before like somebody better than us hires this guy because they've noticed that he's really good. And then we just got to do it again with like an awesome coach hire. And like those guys don't necessarily grow on trees. And so you can either go out of the organization or you can stay in the organization and just promote somebody. But the point is like, if some of these guys were good enough, if some of these guys were Ben Johnson worthy, they'd probably be an offensive coordinator for another team. And meanwhile, like Aaron Glenn left and the Lions defense wasn't even good, which was just kind of an amazing circumstance in and of itself, where it's just like, yeah, defense isn't good, but like, we like your heart. We like your hustle. we like your motivation, I guess. I don't know. So the idea that they're just going to have guys step in and be just as good is really kind of, I think, silly, for lack of a better term.
Yeah, we've seen. And
meanwhile,
it happen,
last year
we've seen it.
Yeah, we see it all that. I think of like the Chargers or like some of these other teams that were really, really good, and all of a sudden, like Norv Turner is the head coach of somebody else.
Well, the Niners,
or the 49ers. Yes, yeah, right. Robert Saleh goes and gets hired as the Jets head coach, and like maybe that doesn't go all that well, but like it's a continuity deficit for the 49ers. And so the Lions are this poor team who like loses their first playoff game last year, gets upset by the Commanders, and still loses their coordinators. And it's like, come on, like we didn't even do the good thing yet. All we did was turn around a moribund franchise that now, like, would you be shocked if the Lions, I'm not saying they're going to go back down to like 4-13, but like, we just got past the point where everybody was looking around going, can you believe the Lions are good? Including Detroit, right? So like that was like 2 years ago, or even last year, where people couldn't believe that the Lions were actually good for a change. And so the idea that if they just went back to being the second or third best team, at least record-wise, like wouldn't be all that crazy. We also last year at this time probably talked about Jared Goff getting to play indoors for essentially the entire season, which is exactly the location that Jared Goff wants to play. This year, it's not so easy, right? Like there are more outdoor games just in and of itself, right? Starting with Green Bay in the opener, Baltimore in week 3. We got Cincinnati, Kansas City. So that's what, 3 or 4 outdoor games. Yeah, that's 4 outdoor games in the first 7 before their bye week. Okay. I'm pretty sure that's the amount of outdoor games they had in the entire season last year. And again, it's the summertime, and that's, October 20th in Tampa Bay, October 12th in Kansas City won't necessarily be like the coldest day we've ever had in our lives. But they finish in Chicago for the last game of the season. They got Philadelphia in week 11, Washington in week 10, more outdoor games. So it's just going to get more difficult both inside of the room and quite literally outside of the friendly confines of Ford Field. And so, when you're talking about a division that does have these other teams that are fully capable, up and coming Bears, the Vikings, who quite literally the only thing that's changed for the Vikings for the negative is going from Sam Darnold to JJ McCarthy. Well, like, we just talked about the Seahawks and not being stoked about Sam Darnold being over there. So it's like, what are they really losing? It's kind of like when we went from Kirk Cousins to Sam Darnold. We're like, hang on a sec. Did anybody really like Kirk Cousins? Did I miss the last decade of our lives? Like, that's the downgrade that you guys are worried about for a team in the Vikings, that because they have quarterback under a rookie contract, they go out and they get Jonathan Allen on the defensive line, another defensive tackle whose name's escaping me right now. They rebuild the middle of the offensive line, getting two guys from the Colts, including center Ryan Kelly, who's like a former Pro Bowler. They get Christian Darrisaw back, who, remember, last year got hurt on the last play of the first half against the Rams on a Thursday nighter. And you and I came back and we're just like, man, that's going to be trouble the rest of the season. And the Vikings kept winning a lot of games, but guess what happened in the playoffs? The Rams defensive line absolutely roasted the offensive line for the Vikings, right? So the Vikings went out and were like, yeah, sorry, Sam Darnold, like, we're never going to pay you because we have to pay other people for doing other things. So the Vikings could very well be just as good. Are they going to win 14, 13 games? No, but like 11 is still like very much in the cards. 10 is very much in the cards. And then you just mentioned the Packers, who would be my pick as well. And we come off of talking about the 49ers, and I just think back to the playoffs 2 years ago. And you know this, right? The 49ers barely escaped the Lions, and they barely escaped the Packers. And it was sort of like, listen, they ended up losing in overtime, as you're well aware. Yes, we're still talking about a Super Bowl from 2 years ago. Sorry, I know that hurts. But at the time, it was like, man, they got to win this Super Bowl because the NFC is going to get more difficult because the Packers are coming and the Lions are coming. And it just happened that last year, maybe because of the things that we've talked about, obviously good coordinators, playing indoors all the time, et cetera, that the Lions were the team. But honestly, if it had been the Packers that had been the team, I don't think we would have been surprised about it. So one season later, those two teams just might switch spots because that's where they are in the arc, right? And the arc isn't always necessarily smooth, and the Packers got to avoid getting pillaged from a player perspective and a coaching perspective, while the Lions didn't get to avoid that. And so you got the Packers, you have the Vikings. The Packers are the easier pick because, we know what we're going to get, or at least we have a pretty good idea what we're going to get out of Jordan Love. And we're not really sure about JJ McCarthy because we haven't seen it yet. But listen, last year the Vikings were like 11-1 to win the division. Now, they didn't end up winning the division, but damn, they came close, and they were like had the most wins of a team not to win the division. And so now it's hard to be like, well, you were 10-1, 11-1 last year, and now you're plus 300 this year. So, like, the value's kind of been taken out of it. And meanwhile, the Packers, Lions thing that is probably a little bit closer than these odds necessarily suggest. You can get the Packers at plus 260 in certain locations. I think, we're talking about two teams that are probably on the same path. And the Packers have just kind of taken less of, honestly, kind of a few bullets to their roster and their coaching staff. And there's no reason to think that they can't do what the Lions did last season.
Yeah, definitely right with you there on the Green Bay Packers. And just like last year's season, midway through, they were just cooking. They were cooking. And it was just such a tough division. And eventually that's going to wear you down. And I think that might have happened there. We know Jordan Love was banged up there towards the end of the season as well. But, like their chances heading into this season. That's the value pick, Packers, plus 225 in the NFC North. We switch to the NFC South, a division that I know you love so much, my dude. We'll go here in the NFC South. We got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at minus 120, the Atlanta Falcons at plus 210, the Carolina Panthers at plus 500, and the New Orleans Saints at plus 230. 2,000. Now, here's the thing. Here's the thing here. As I know, I started here. The last thing I said was the Saints at plus 2,000. The one thing I haven't checked here is I don't know if I wrote that down before or after it was announced that Spencer Rattler would be the week 1 starter for the New Orleans Saints. Because if I remember anything from last year, I am fading anytime Spencer Rattler is starting, which, I mean, here we are, week 1. Like, that's on purpose. Like, that's their plan. They had a whole offseason to sit and watch what happened last year. And then they came back around this season. They're like, you know what? You know who we're going to start this year? Spencer Rattler. All right.
Well, to sort of give them a little grace, I think they thought Derek Carr wasn't going to abruptly retire, but it's their fault that they thought Derek Carr was ever like plan A, right? Like, you put yourself in the Derek Carr business, like things are going to happen one way or another, right? So I'm with you.
Facts. Carolina, could they be for real? Like a for real team? I'm not really sure. You got the Falcons last year, solid start. They fell off a cliff, but I'm going to be honest here. I'm rolling with the Atlanta Falcons at plus 210 here. Okay. And the reason being is I am on board of the Michael Penix Jr. train. Falcons offense.
What?
I'm just going to keep going here. They got a bunch of offensive weapons, and you know, can that translate to actual wins? We're gonna find out, but I feel like Atlanta's at least gonna be a lot more interesting. We're not gonna be watching Kirk Cousins throwing ducks as he was last year, as like, you know, remember early last season where they had Kirk Cousins swag surfing and stuff, and like that was a thing. Yeah. Kirko chains, he had the chains. That was a thing that happened, right? And then not so much. So, hey, maybe I'm drinking the Kool-Aid, but give me Michael Penix Jr. and the Atlanta Falcons at plus 210 here as my value pick in said NFC South.
You know how like Brandon Allen or Kyle Allen, like one of the non-Josh Allens, like just keeps showing up? Right? Like it's like week 11 and you're like, oh, this team X, like looks like it's the Kyle Allen show. I always love it when you like the third string quarterback gets show assigned to them because like NFL Network guy can't think of anything better to say than the Kyle Allen show. I think Kirk Cousins might be like the super rich man's version of Kyle Allen, where it's like, do you really think we've seen the last of Kirk Cousins this season? Like, you think it's just going to be 17 games of Michael Penix and, like, nothing's going to go wrong? I don't. I think we're seeing Kirk Cousins. A part of that is, like, Michael Penix, for as much as, like, I love Michael Penix in, you know, Washington that final year. I thought he should have won the Heisman Trophy. He's got a long list of injury history, right? And so he comes in and, you know, we get the like Mark McGuire Simpsons episode where who wants to watch me hit some dingers, who wants to watch Michael Penix just rip throws all day long. It's like, oh, I didn't even know you could throw a ball that far or that hard, because, you know, Atlanta Falcons fans have been watching Kirk Cousins and his mangled shoulder try to get balls out there, and it's like, well, you know, velocity doesn't necessarily translate to victories, right? And it's like, it's gonna be more fun. There are going to be cooler throws, but when it comes to actually winning football games, like, I get it. Cousins like was the problem for a couple of those losses as the Falcons kind of teetered away, but they also got super lucky when they were winning those games to take that lead over the Bucs in that division. And so part of the luck quotient in all of that is that Kirk Cousins was like game managing them to victories. And so while the Penix stuff is going to be cooler and more neat, I don't know that it's going to be better, because there could be some interceptions and some really loose type stuff. And that's if he even kind of quote unquote survives 17 games, which I have questions of. I actually kind of like the Falcons a little bit more when Kirk Cousins is going to play in these games. Again, it's a little more of a rich man's. It's a super rich man's Kyle Allen. It's a, you know, affluent man's Daniel Jones situation where you're like, no, like this guy is going to get the ball to the places where the ball needs to go and is not going to like turn the ball over an insane amount. Listen, Kirk Cousins can turn the ball over, don't get me wrong, but like in small doses when he's not out there having to play every week, looking over his shoulder at Penix going like, I don't care if my arm is detached, like I must start this game to keep my like career going here. As long as he's on the roster, and listen, something wacky could happen between now and the start of the season where they're like, no, we don't want the distraction. And somehow Kyle Allen ends up being the backup quarterback for the Falcons. Like, I don't even know where Kyle Allen is right now, but I imagine his phone is on. But like, I just don't think the assumption of like, oh, they're going to have Michael Penix now and they're going to be better is like super reliable or super viable. That being said, it's the NFC South. And like our friends over in the AFC South, who the hell knows? You don't need many wins to win this division. Go back and look at what the Bucs have done to win this division over the years. Even going back to Tom Brady, it's like, yeah, congrats on the 8 wins. You win the division. 9 wins. Like last year, if we think that the Bucs are a juggernaut because they came storming back over the Falcons, they were 2-4 to start the season. They weren't even the favorite before the year, right? The Falcons were the favorite. And then they end up finishing 10-7. And 10-7 is good enough in the NFC South. And it's probably going to be good enough again this year in the NFC South. The Falcons have an offensive line injury to Caleb McGarry that they're watching closely. We already know the Bucs are going to be without Tristan Wirfs for basically the first month of the season. I could certainly see that lasting longer. This is where you hear the Carolina Panthers, which nobody wants to get excited about. Nobody even tries to get excited about the Carolina Panthers. But if I gave you a blind sort of factual type thing where it was third year of a number 1 pick and head coach that's had offensive success in turning around Baker Mayfield's career, and that quarterback was benched, halfway through last season, but came back and had 15 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. And, they're getting their best defensive player back that they didn't have last year. And they feel so good about their wide receiving room that they're trading a veteran option that had 7 or 8 touchdowns or whatever it was last year. If I just started reeling off all that stuff, a top 10 offensive line that nobody talks about. If I just said that before saying that those specific names were Bryce Young, Dave Canales, and the Carolina Panthers, and Derek Brown, a nose tackle, or defensive tackle, you would probably be signing up for it. But then you're oh, the Carolina Panthers, they've been stinky for a while now. And they did win 5 games, I think it was last season. And they played teams like the Chiefs and Eagles right down to the wire in that second half of the season. And again, we're not talking about a scenario where, man, it's the Chiefs at the top of the division, the Eagles at the top of the division, the Ravens, Bills at the top of the division. We're talking about the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being -20 to win their division. They might win the division, but in what way does that sound like a good idea? Betting the Buccaneers at -120. Might as well take the long shot. It's not going to be the Saints, and your boy Spencer Rattler. Again, they accidentally kind of had to do this with Rattler. If you told me they were openly trying to lose games to get the number 1 pick, to coax Arch Manning into, coming out and forcing his way to the Saints, his grandfather, I guess is the lineage there, or whatever really good quarterback, right? There's no team that needs to lose all of the games more than the Saints. So no, 20-1 is not going to be good enough for me to take the Saints here. But I think 9 or 10 wins could win this division. I think the Carolina Panthers are just as capable as, say, the Falcons to win that amount of games. And for over double the payout, yeah, why not take a little flyer on the Carolina Panthers in a wacky division?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I said I'm on the Falcons, but you're bang on, and especially the way that Bryce Young ended last season. At least he showed he's able to be competent and that he is an NFL quarterback. Do you know what I mean? Because this the way that season 100%. Started, it did not go that way at all. You could essentially fade them each and every single week, and then all of a sudden, by the end of the season, as you mentioned, they're in the mix. They're in the mix. They're a spicy, what we like to call the spicy team trying to cover by the end of the season last year, right? So
for sure.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. We will move on to hold on. Are we at our final destination? Is that a thing or the journey that we've been on already? The final destination of the NFC East.
Time flies when you're having fun,
Eagles. Brother. Apparently, right? The NFC East, Philadelphia Eagles, defending Super Bowl champs, minus 140. The Washington, what did they call themselves? I was going to say Commandos. What did I call them a couple years ago? I was calling them like the Commodores, I think, for some reason.
The Commodores. Anyway, you love that. Yeah.
Yeah. At plus 220. The Washingtons at plus 220. The Dallas Cowboys at plus 650. The always interesting Dallas Cowboys. And the not so interesting New York Football Giants at plus 1,800. What are the Cowboys doing? Same story on repeat each and every year, it seems, right? It's just like hit replay, just insert different star, right? And then they're going to be like, oh, whoa, guess what? Right before kickoff, big news. They signed Micah Parsons.
Micah Parsons music.
What's going on?
Who could have seen that
here's
coming?
my question for you, right? For that, the Commanders, for the Cowboys to be at plus 650 and the Commanders to be at plus 220, considering everything that went right for the Commanders last year. I'm just talking about the balls bouncing in their direction in a lot of different end of the games, including a literal ball bouncing Hail Mary victory, right? Like so many things.
Least favorite game last year. Yeah.
They had all of hold on. What's my guy's name that was like dancing, the DB that was dancing and like talking trash before sorry, I'm putting you on the spot, but it's just because that moment when it happened, it was one of the most incredible things ever. Shout out to whoever that fan was. Normally we crush people on their cell phones filming things in games, but that changed the whole dynamic of how we viewed that final play as my guys talking trash
and the
to the crowd.
And the season.
It really did. And then his guy gets the touchdown. So good. But I say all that to say the balls bounced in the favor of the Commanders. And yes, they gave the Eagles a go in the playoffs. Yes, Jane Daniels had a great season, but also, is it sustainable for all their success on fourth down again? I don't know. There's just a lot going on here. And for them to be, again, the Cowboys to be at plus 650 versus Washington to be at plus 220, that's a big gap to me. That's a huge gap. And the Giants, I mean, I don't know. The Giants don't have a good defense. I know that. That'll give them some hope, right? The defense will be cool, but not exactly here for the Russell Wilson experience. But yeah, I think I'm leaning Dallas Cowboys here at plus 650, which, I mean, do I ever want to be leaning the Dallas Cowboys? But here we are.
No. First of all, Tyreek Stevenson. Was it Tyreek Stevenson?
Okay. Let's see here. I'm going to look it up right now.
I think it was Tyreek Stevenson. I was looking at name, like which one of these guys sounds like a dope? It's not Kyler Gordon. It wasn't Jalen Johnson. Those guys are good players.
I think it was.
Jonathan Owens is married to, Flippy McSpins. What's her name? See, now I'm trying to find out gymnast names. Simone Biles.
Yeah.
It wasn't Simone Biles' husband, right?
No.
He
would not have survived. The internet would not have let him live that one down. No. The internet is already not a fan of him.
Did you watch the Cowboys Netflix documentary, Shell?
Not yet. Did
you get into 8 episodes of the Dallas Cowboys? 7 episodes about them winning 3 Super Bowls, 45 minutes about the last 30 years. Not to spoil it. So like, you're not going to love it as a 49ers fan. Right? Because it's all very much like, we beat.
Probably why I haven't been like rushing to it.
Yeah, listen, I'd skip it if I were you. Maybe just tune in for the last episode for 45 minutes of the 30 years of them being a disaster. You know what?
Dak Prescott in the doc?
No.
Okay.
Only as part of the last 45 minutes, like a jarring amount of them getting blown out by the Packers 2 years ago in the playoffs. But that's only contextually, like, yeah. Anyway, not to derail it, this whole deal entirely, but sort of the point is like, you just watch that thing and you go like, this man's 80 years old and he's still the general manager of this team. Like, we do not talk about this enough, even though we talk about it all of the time. And so when you go, all right, what's the story? And obviously the Micah Parsons thing, it sort of works because it distracts from the fact that they don't have any other players other than Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, and Micah Parsons. Like, we're busy talking about the good players and whether they're going to get signed so that we don't talk about the fact that, like, this dude has been god-awful at drafting for 30 years. And, like, even the things that he's sort of famous for is like not drafting Randy Moss and like how that has haunted him. And it's like, you're not even doing the irresponsible stuff correctly. That's how bad you are at this whole deal. So again, organizationally, why would I want anything to do with the Cowboys? Now, they have stumbled in 2-3 years ago, right? People go like, oh, Dak, 17 games of Dak. Like, if they get 17 games out of Dak, like they won the division 2 years ago. Well, for one, something wacky happened with the Eagles in the latter half of that season, right? Which got, by and large, seems to have gotten cleaned up by the fact that they just smoked everybody in the playoffs last year, which, like, I don't think we talk enough about the fact that they truck jobbed the Commanders, and like Matthew Stafford's like even late game heroics and a snowfall, the likes of which like we rarely see, are what kept that game even sort of remotely close. And then even the Packers, back to our point about the Packers being probably better than they're getting credit for, like they hung in there with the Eagles, but like the Eagles defense still only gave up like 11 points in that game or whatever it was. And then of course what they did to the Chiefs. So, you know, fundamentally I just go, all right, 2 years ago, cool, but like they had a way better offensive line, the Cowboys did. They had was it Trevon Diggs just returning interceptions like constantly? Like that dried up last year. Like, of course it did. And so, yeah, like the Cowboys aren't going to get all the defensive scores. We're assuming Dak Prescott stays healthy, which behind an offensive line is a shadow of its former self, seems highly unlikely. And, you know, nothing in the way of a running game. They haven't done that well in years. And it's like, yeah, but they got George Pickens. And it's like, we watch George Pickens all the time, and half the time we're wondering what kind of a clown this guy is, right? It's like he makes super amazing catches from time to time, and the rest of the time we're like, what a dope, right? And so it's like, well, that's going to be the reason that we get excited about the Cowboys. But if people want to get excited, and listen, we're talking about a plus 650 division bet here, and I'm saying that people are getting excited about them, which like those two things don't necessarily jive. I don't think people are getting excited about the Cowboys, but if you're willing to make that case, you're willing to make that case. I think the Giants are going to be improved, but of course that just means I'm going to be sitting there every Sunday for the foreseeable future getting suckered into the Russell Wilson lifestyle. And whether it's on the field or off the field, I don't want to be on the Russell Wilson lifestyle. Like, I don't know what's going on in that scene. I feel like cloaks are probably involved. And, like, I'm just not a cloak guy, all right? We talked about throwing hoodies on for the, you know, come mid-November. If you see me show up with a cloak, know that something really weird happened over here. And then so we're just kind of left with Washington, and people are legitimately getting excited about Washington. And people just kind of going like, yeah, Philadelphia, also very, very good. The fact that you can sort of make a case to be pro-Cowboys, pro-Giants, pro-Commanders, you know, a few of the percentage points of win probability away from the odds of the Eagles, who probably should be like minus 170, minus 180, like even minus 200, right? Like, isn't this a team that's probably 67% chance to win the division? Like, if we just played that game, right? Like, what percentage chance would you give the Eagles to win their division? And honestly, if it's anything higher, I mean, they're minus 140, right? It's telling us that it's less than 60% chance that the Eagles win this division. You know, I don't think that's what Howie Roseman's doing here. We got Howie Roseman against Jerry Jones in a GM off in this division. Like, that is a wildly unfair matchup
Yeah.
In the front office. True. And just because those guys don't run out on the field and start taking snaps and like put helmets on, which would be objectively entertaining, more entertaining than most Cowboys games last year. This is how we have to think about this sometimes, right? Howie Roseman's out here doing stuff, and Jerry and Stephen Jones can't agree on like what makes a good head coach, which is also a part of the documentary, I believe the last episode of the documentary. And it's like, the 81-year-old general manager of a football team isn't able to fill his roster with like any good draft picks over the last little while, other than, again, Micah Parsons and CeeDee Lamb. And it's like, if you're going to hit one set of every 3 years on basically only your first round pick, you're not going to compete with Howie Roseman, who's doing stuff. He's like George Costanza driving, right? He's like, I'm doing stuff you have no idea what's going on. Right? And it's like, that's Howie Roseman. Whereas like Jerry Jones is driving this vehicle like an 81-year-old man.
Yeah.
Because he is an 81-year-old man. Just give me the Eagles. Like, let's not complicate it. You can get a minus 130 out there. Just take the Eagles. And like, it's not a deal where it's like, it's the Texans and they're around even money, or it's, we're not paying minus 330 for the Eagles.
Yeah.
Because people are excited about the Commanders. And like you mentioned, the fourth down stuff with the Commanders and the fluky stuff at the end of games. Listen, the Commanders could win 11 games and it's considered a good season. They would go over their win total. Is 11 wins going to top the Eagles? I don't think so. I think the Eagles are going to win at like kind of bare minimum 11 games. So I'll take the Eagles in this.
Okay. I like it. What about a little Eagles, Ravens, Chiefs? No, I'm joking.
You're going to start parlaying division winners? Is that what we're doing out on these streets? This is the point where like 11 weeks from now,
I knew that would get
11 weeks from now, Shell's going to admit to me that he has like a 4 division winner parlay. And like 3 of them are like locked up. And there's like a 4th and he's like, man, like really could use like a Cowboys win here for my 5 division parlay. And I'm like, I'm sorry, what parlay?
I don't have the patience to do that. I personally don't have the patience to do that. I know a lot. Obviously, I mean, streets are littered with people that enjoy doing that. I just don't have the patience for it. And I hate when exactly the moment you're describing here, where like you get to a point in the season and it's like, no, this is what the reality is. But in the back of your mind, you're thinking of this like crazy parlay that you have and you need these outcomes to happen.
Listen.
When the
you're
Panthers
out there
are not going to be
Labor Day weekend, you get a couple of casual beverages in you flipping through, somebody saying, hey, like, you going to bet on the Ohio State-Texas game? You start flipping through that. You throw a little coinage on the Longhorns, and then all of a sudden, guess who finds himself in the NFC divisional markets? And you know what? Like, you got, X amount of dollars and 26 cents in this account. Why don't I just throw like 826 on a 5-team division winner and then at like 107-1? And then all of a sudden, like, I'm not hearing about it until like Thanksgiving when the Cowboys lose to the Raiders at home. And it's like, oh man, like I really thought that parlay had a chance. And it was like, yeah, well, I guess it did, but a little bit loosey-goosey for you on a Saturday of a long weekend.
So you're telling me there's a chance? No. So let's go to the conference winners here. Okay. Let's look at some conference odds, see if we can find a value pick here. You got the Eagles at plus 360, the Lions at plus 550, the Packers at plus 900, the Commanders at plus 950, the Niners at plus 950, the Rams at plus 1,000, the Bucks and Vikings at plus 1,100. And then you're getting in the wacky season with the Bears and Cowboys and a little too much there.
You fall asleep.
So anything standing out to you there? Because as I take a peek out there, I'm like the Packers at plus 900 is very interesting to me because as we discussed in terms of that division, they got a shot at that division. And if you're telling me you win your division, of course, the Eagles probably have the easier path in their division, but still plus 900. I like that.
Yeah. Like we talked about with the AFC, right? It's who's going to be able to create the easiest path, right? And obviously, easiest path is to win, the number 1 seed. But if we just wanted to do that, you would just go to the number 1 seed market and then just kind of take that. Here, it's like, all right, if all things fall into place, who's the team that could, even if they don't get the number 1 seed, they actually go on the road and can win a game on the road? I think that team might be your 49ers. We talked about the defense.
What?
If those guys on the defense are good, and we turn back the clock, from a coaching perspective a little bit, and that high-end ability of the 49ers is, it doesn't, I think they kind of just win 10 games just on schedule alone. If they're good, Christian McCaffrey stays healthy, et cetera, they could win 13 games, 14 games. And because we are uncertain about the Rams, we live in a universe where we are obligated to be uncertain about the Cardinals all of the time. And we don't really think that much of the Seahawks. Why couldn't the 49ers get either the number 1 seed or the number 2 seed as part of them winning the division? At which point, then they have to go on the road, in theory, if that number 1 seed holds. That number 1 seed could be anybody. It could be Philadelphia, right? If something goes squirrely for Philadelphia, maybe it is the Commanders that step through in the NFC East and win a bunch of games, or maybe one of those NFC North teams. It's easy to say, look, all of these NFC North teams could win 9 games. Exactly. Every one of them could go 9-8. But if everything goes right for any number of those teams, they could win 12, 13, or 14 games like a couple of them did last season. And so I don't really want to pick which one of those teams, because the Vikings are at 11-1, and I was kind of thinking that, but it's no, it's the Packers. Obviously, we think they, good chance to win the division, but I'm kind of cool with just having that as that plus money, plus 250 type of a bet. But it's the 49ers that could win 13 games, get the easy path, or show us by winning 13 or 14 games that this kind of all-in approach for the last ride, if you will, actually works. And when we're talking about something that's, around 10-1, to me, that's way better than Lions plus 550. That's better than Commanders plus 950. Again, with as much as we think highly of the Packers, the schedule doesn't scream 14-3 the way the 49ers schedule. Certainly, if they won 14 games, you'd be like, yeah, all right. Now I'm going to need to see it in the playoffs. But again, winning 14 games, even if we don't think you're a 14 game level team, is going to get you that path and is going to suggest that maybe the pieces have fallen into place for the 49ers.
See, I like how we're ending this pod right now, getting me feeling a little more positive about my Niners heading into the season. I like that. Feels good. It feels good. I can't lie to you, but I know you got a bunch of season preview stuff for sure. For the people, where can they find all of that if they want to get caught up with everything that you're doing, my dude?
Yeah, The Window, sports betting with Matt Russell over on Substack. Literally link in this podcast. Link at the bottom of this screen. Come to my Twitter at mrusauthentic, and you can find everything there. I also want to quickly plug doing some stuff with Yahoo Sports. So you can go over to Yahoo Sports. They have a new sports betting hub content area. So helping them out with that this season. We have, of course, the podcast. College football, also a big thing over at The Window. And then eventually we'll get into hockey and college basketball and all that kind of good stuff as well. But for the NFL season, we do have player stat futures to come, receiving, passing, rushing, and then awards, which are always super fun because we like to reflect on those over and over and over again during the season. MVP, comeback player, offensive, defensive, rookies, and player of the years, and all of that good stuff. So all of that is still to come for the remaining 1 week we have until the regular season starts. So all very exciting stuff. Come to The Window, come hang out.
Yes, for sure. Lots going on there. Make sure you check out everything Matt just said at The Window for sure. And the substack.com/@ M. Russ Authentic. As I'm reading the graphic literally on the screen to make sure I do not.
I did the same thing in the AFC. Right, I was like, what is it again?
Right. Shouts to technology and stuff. Yeah. Of course, you can find me on the app formerly known as Twitter at Shell Alexander and on Instagram at Sheldon Alexander. Remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts. That's a Clutch Picks. Ooh, Clutch Picks betting podcast, Apple, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. That's where you can find this pod. Make sure you subscribe on all of those places when you find the link. And because this was part 2, that means that there was a part 1. So make sure you listen to both previews of the AFC and the NFC and know that our week 1 picks will be available next week. The podcast is each and every Thursday. Know where you can find it. So if you don't subscribe, just go scrolling and follow us on socials and you'll see it there somewhere. Or of course,
just subscribe.
Clutch. I mean, that's the easy thing to do, of course, but there's stragglers.
Just subscribe. This isn't complicated, guys. Just hit subscribe. If you hate us later on, then unsubscribe. But subscribe. Just do it.
Yeah. Why not?
It's not complicated.
Why not, right?
You know how it works. Just subscribe.
It's really not that complicated. It really isn't. And as I always say, my name is Sheldon Alexander. You can find me in all those places I already said. I used to pray for times like this, to rhyme like this. This is the Clutch Picks Sports Betting Podcast, as always, unpolished and unapologetic. Until next time, see ya.